8 calls in a row. Assalamu alaikum, this is your brother Mohammad Arshad, and today has been one of those days where your mind goes mad. I've had 7 calls during the day. I've got my 8th and final call coming up, and not all of them have been like short calls. Like the first call was like an hour with my business partner, and then the second one was a product development call for like an hour and a half, and then there was another hour, and then there was another call for an hour and a half, and then an hour one, then a half an hour, and a half an hour, and it's just been going all day, all day, all day, all day. So I just wanted to give you some tips for days like this when you've got lots and lots of calls that you have to have. The first tip I want to give you is that I try and batch my calls on the same day. So what you'll find is that whenever you have a call, sometimes it interrupts you and it takes over your day, or it can kind of ruin your productivity or your thinking or your deep work. So what I try and do is I try and pick a day or two in the week where I try and have all my calls, right? So batching the calls together, that's the first tip that I would give you. The second thing I would do is I would advise that you basically book the calls, but try and keep a buffer. Like, it depends on how many calls you have, but try and keep a buffer within there so that you actually can make salah, do what you need to do, and like just make sure that there's a bit of time in between whenever you can, inshallah. And of course sometimes you have to do back-to-back calls, and therefore you just do back-to-back calls. So that's the second thing I would say. The third thing I would say is that make sure that you always use a calendar, right? So I use Google Calendar. I plan all my meetings in there, and basically put everything in there. Now, one of the great things about Google Calendar is that you can actually choose how many notifications you get. So the way I do it is I make sure that I never ever miss a meeting, right? The way I do that is I have a notification 24 hours. So 24 hours before any meeting, I get a notification saying you have a meeting in 24 hours. Right? And that's great because you've been in that situation where suddenly you realize, oh my God, I have a meeting. I forgot about this meeting completely. So what I do is 24 hours before I get a notification. The second thing is that I get a notification 1 hour before. So in like my meetings in 1 hour, I'm like, okay, notification now. In 1 hour you got a meeting. Oh my God, like I'm working on this, or I'm outside the house. I need to get back in the house. I need to do something to get on the phone, right? And then the final one is 15 minutes before. So 15 minutes before the call, I get another reminder saying, look, there's a call in 15 minutes, right? And so then that helps me to basically plan the day, but it also helps me to be on time, because being punctual is so important, right? Like as soon as the clock hits that number, I've already got their number waiting, and I've got it dialed, and I'm ready. And as soon as the clock hits that number, maybe sometimes even seconds before, I click it and I just call them straight away and get on the phone. And this is something that people notice. Like I've said before, I had this brother, he said, wow, like mashallah, you always call me bang on time. Like, how do you do that? And I'm like, if you can't trust me to call you on time, how can you trust me with anything else, right? So being on time is so important. So like I said, you can have these days where you have calls. The best thing to do is to batch them together, is to make sure that you kind of book them in through your calendar, leave a buffer between them, be on time. And then the last tip I would give you, the bonus tip, is that when you're on these calls, like be present completely, like switch off your tabs, switch off your distractions, do everything you can to be fully present in the call, because if you do that, you will be able to maximize value as much as possible. And ultimately, every call you're on, you want it to be effective, you want it to be productive. So the best thing for you is be present and be completely on the phone by switching off all the distractions. I hope it helps, and inshallah I'll see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.